What if the greatest truths are meant to be lived and not spoken? What if silence, not confession, is the mark of true awakening? Alan Watts once said, "The meaning of life is just to be alive. It is so plain and so obvious. Yet everybody rushes around in a great panic as if it were necessary to achieve something beyond themselves. And maybe that's the secret. The awakened soul does not shout. It moves quietly through the world, unfolding its wisdom like a breeze through leaves. In a time where everyone is trying to prove how spiritual they are, to show their depth, their rituals, their enlightenment, perhaps the truly awakened are the ones who hold something back, because not everything sacred is meant to be shared. Some truths lose their fragrance when exposed to noise. Some moments of clarity only live when kept close to the heart. This video will guide you through the 7 things you should never reveal, not out of fear, but out of reverence. These are the inner treasures that lose their power when they become performance. So sit back, breathe slowly, and listen not with the mind, but with that still space within you, the part that already understands. If these words resonate with you, share your thoughts in the comments below. Sometimes your reflection might awaken something in another soul, and if this journey feels like home, subscribe so that the next moment of insight finds you, exactly when you're ready for it. Because true awakening isn't about being seen. It's about seeing clearly, quietly, completely. Chapter 1. The depth of your silence. There is a silence that is not empty, but full. Full of understanding, compassion, and the quiet rhythm of existence itself. It is not the silence of avoidance or suppression, but the silence that blooms when the mind has finally stopped chasing itself. Alan Watts often spoke about the stillness beneath the noise, the eternal hum behind every sound. He said that when we become silent, we don't lose ourselves. We find the space where the self dissolves into life. You see, most people speak to be seen. They speak to prove, to explain, to define who they are. But the more you try to explain your awakening, the more it slips through your fingers. Because awakening is not an idea, it is an experience, and no experience can survive being dissected. Have you ever noticed how the most profound moments of your life are the ones you could never quite describe? The first time you truly forgave, the quiet tears that fell without reason, the deep peace that arrived in the middle of chaos. You couldn't explain it, yet it changed you forever. That's the power of sacred silence. It doesn't need to be announced. It doesn't need to be shared. When you are truly still, the world can feel your peace more than it can hear your words. People often ask, how will others know I am evolving if I don't speak of it? But that question reveals the misunderstanding. The one who needs to prove their light is still afraid of their own shadow. When you guard your silence, you guard your center. And in a world addicted to noise, silence is rebellion. It's a declaration that you no longer need the world's approval to know your own worth. Like the moon reflecting the sun's light, you don't need to shout to be luminous. You simply need to be. So remember, your silence is not weakness. It's your truest power. Keep it sacred, because once the world begins to demand your explanation, the most radical thing you can do is smile and say nothing. Chapter 2. The vision that words cannot touch. There are moments in life when something vast opens inside you, a sudden recognition, a flash of knowing, a glimpse into eternity. It arrives without effort, without warning, and for a brief instant, you understand everything. But then, the mind begins to speak. What does this mean? How can I explain this to someone? And in that very moment, the sacred dissolves into noise, because the mind cannot hold what the soul has seen. Words can only point, never contain. Alan Watts once said, trying to define yourself is like trying to bite your own teeth. You can't speak truth into form without losing part of it. The moment we attempt to describe the infinite, it becomes small, reduced to symbols, metaphors, ideas. And the tragedy is that most of us end up worshiping the words instead of living the vision itself. Have you ever had a dream so beautiful? You tried to describe it in the morning, but the more you spoke, the less it made sense. That is the nature of spiritual insight. It doesn't survive translation. It's meant to be felt, not explained. The awakened vision is not an image in your mind. It's the recognition that you are the image. That consciousness itself is painting and painter, dream and dreamer. You see that nothing was ever separate, that everything has always been arising together as one great cosmic dance. And yet the temptation comes to share it, to teach it, to be known for it. We want others to understand what we've seen, to validate it, to honor it, as if enlightenment needed applause. But truth does not need to be believed to be real. It simply is. When you hold it quietly, it begins to change you from within, not as an idea, but as a living force. Imagine a seed buried deep in the soil. It does not scream its intention to grow. It simply unfolds unseen, and one day it becomes a tree. Your insight is like that seed. The more you protect it, the stronger its roots will become. There's a reason ancient mystics hid their wisdom in stories, in riddles and symbols. They understood that language must hint at truth, not imprison it. When you reveal too soon what has not fully bloomed, it loses its fragrance. You pull the petals apart before the flower has learned to open. Sometimes silence is not secrecy, it is gestation. The sacred needs privacy to mature. When you see something holy, let it live inside you first. Let it shape your eyes, your actions, your breath. Let it become part of the way you move through the world. And when people ask what you've discovered, you won't need to explain. They'll see it in your peace. They'll hear it in your laughter. They'll feel it in your presence. Watts often spoke of the folly of trying to save or enlighten others, that each soul awakens in its own time, and no amount of talking can speed that up. You can only be a mirror, a reflection that quietly reminds them of what they already are. So guard your vision. Don't let the world pull it into the marketplace of opinions. Not everything sacred should be made public. Not every insight should be turned into content. Some things are holy precisely because they remain unseen. Have you noticed how modern life rewards exposure? We're taught to share everything, our meals, our grief, our joy, our growth. But the soul does not flourish in constant visibility. It grows in the unseen, in the privacy of stillness, in the quiet space between thoughts. When you share prematurely, you trade transcendence for attention. You begin to live for the echo, not the experience. And slowly, your vision becomes performance, a reflection of what you want to be seen as, rather than who you truly are. Protect your inner garden from this noise. The world does not need your explanation. It needs your example. The truth that cannot be spoken will shine through the way you listen, the way you love, the way you forgive. You don't have to preach light, just become it. And so, remember, never reveal your deepest vision too soon, because the divine speaks softly, and it vanishes when shouted. Those who truly see walk quietly among us. Their presence feels like peace. Their eyes speak more than words ever could. They remind us that some truths can only survive in silence. Hold your vision close. Let it be the private language between you and the infinite, because the moment you try to show it to the world, you risk losing the very thing that made it sacred. Chapter 3. The depth of your compassion. There is a kind of compassion that drains you, and another that frees you. One that grows from the anxious need to save, and one that flows from understanding. Alan Watts used to say, "You are under no obligation to be the savior of the world." Because the truth is, when you try to rescue everyone, you forget that life itself is already doing the saving. We often mistake compassion for control. We think love means fixing, that empathy means carrying everyone's burdens, that to care deeply, we must sacrifice endlessly. But when the awakened heart sees clearly, it realizes, real compassion does not come from the need to change others. It arises from the quiet knowing that everything is unfolding as it must. Have you ever noticed how your deepest acts of kindness often came effortlessly? You didn't calculate them. You didn't plan to be a good person. You simply felt love move through you like a river, without effort, without demand. That is true compassion. When love flows not from obligation, but from presence. But when compassion becomes performance, it turns into something else. When helping others becomes your identity, you begin to feed on their pain. You need them to need you. And slowly, without realizing it, you start to drain your own light to keep others warm. The most dangerous illusion of the awakened is the belief that they must awaken everyone else. You see someone lost in confusion and you want to hand them your clarity. But what you forget is that their confusion is part of their path. Their suffering is not a mistake, and it is their teacher. And when you interfere too soon, you rob them of the lesson their soul came here to learn. True compassion is not interference. It's accompaniment. It is not rushing into the storm to rescue the drowning. but standing on the shore with open arms when they choose to swim back. Watts once said, "Muddy water is best cleared by leaving it alone." In the same way, hearts are best healed not by our fixing hands, but by our patient presence. There is a deep humility in realizing that you cannot save anyone, that every being must walk through their own darkness to find their own light. It's a kind of love that no longer says, "Let me carry you," but instead whispers, "I will walk beside you." You begin to see that compassion without wisdom is exhaustion, and wisdom without compassion is emptiness. The awakened path is where the two become one, where you love deeply, but without attachment to outcome, because what you give freely, without needing it to be noticed or reciprocated, is what transforms the world. Have you ever noticed that some of the kindest souls you've met rarely talk about their kindness? They don't call themselves healers, helpers, or light workers. They simply live. Their goodness is silent. It's in the way they listen, the way they make space for others to be exactly who they are. You never feel their pity. You feel their presence. They don't make you feel small for struggling. They remind you that struggle is sacred too, and that is the compassion of the awakened. It doesn't burn out because it's not coming from effort. It's coming from stillness. So never reveal the full depth of your compassion to those who cannot understand it. Some people will see it as weakness. Others will try to use it. Protect your giving heart the way the ocean protects its pearls, not in fear, but in reverence. When you truly love, you don't need the world to know. You don't even need to be thanked. You simply give, and the act of giving is its own completion. Alan Watts once described life as a symphony. Every note, every sound, every silence has its place. Your role is not to correct the music, but to play your part beautifully. To let others find their rhythm, even if it sounds dissonant to you, because eventually every discord resolves. Every soul finds its melody, and the most compassionate thing you can do is trust the music of existence to guide them home. So, be kind, but do not lose yourself in the name of kindness. Be loving. But let love flow through you, not from you, because you are not the source, you are the vessel. And the more you try to own the love you give, the less love can flow through you. Remember, true compassion is invisible. It leaves no trace, no signature, no proof. It is felt, not seen. Hold your compassion quietly, like a candle sheltered from the wind. Let its warmth reach those who need it, but guard its flame so that it may keep burning long after the world has forgotten to say thank you. Chapter 4. The mystery of your faith. Faith is not belief. Belief is brittle. Faith is trust even when you cannot see. Alan Watts often said that faith is the act of letting go, not holding on. It is the courage to fall backwards into the arms of the unknown, to live without the security of certainty, and yet to know, somehow, that everything is as it should be. You see, belief clings. Faith flows. Belief demands proof. Faith whispers, "Wait and see." And the tragedy of our age is that we have confused the two. We have built temples out of opinions and called them truth. We have replaced wonder with argument and called it understanding. But faith, real faith, cannot be debated or explained. It is the quiet confidence that rises when reason collapses. It is the strange calm that fills you when everything you love begins to fall apart, and yet you still feel a deep, inexplicable peace. Have you ever noticed how the moments that shaped you the most were rarely the ones you planned? The heartbreak that broke you open, the loss that made you softer, the failure that turned into an unexpected doorway. This is how faith reveals itself, not as something you find, but as something that finds you. Watts once compared life to water. He said, "Faith is like water. You don't grab it, you flow with it. When you try to control water, it slips through your fingers. But when you learn to float, it carries you exactly where you need to go." The same is true for life. Faith is not about predicting the next chapter. It's about trusting that even the blank pages have meaning. It's about realizing that existence itself is intelligent, that there is a rhythm behind every coincidence, a hidden order beneath every apparent chaos. But be careful whom you share your faith with. Not everyone will understand it. Some will call it naive. Some will mistake your surrender for weakness, and others will try to drag you back into fear, because they cannot bear to see someone unafraid. There is a sacredness in quiet faith, the kind that doesn't announce itself, doesn't try to convert, doesn't need to be understood. It simply walks through the storm, smiling at the thunder. To reveal your faith to those who live by doubt is like showing your open heart to a blade. They will try to dissect what should be felt. They will question what should be trusted. And slowly your faith begins to shrink under the weight of their logic. So protect your faith. Let it grow in the shadows like roots beneath the earth. Let it feed you from within, invisible, unseen, but unbreakable. There will be times when your faith feels like madness, when the world tells you that you are foolish for trusting life. But remember, every great act of creation, every transformation was once called madness by those who couldn't see its purpose. Faith is not a statement. It's a relationship. It's the intimacy between you and the universe, a dance between your uncertainty and the world's gentle assurance. You are held. Watts often reminded his listeners that faith was like laughter. You don't laugh to solve something. You laugh because suddenly you see through it. Faith is that same cosmic laughter. The moment you realize that life was never a problem to be solved, but a mystery to be enjoyed. And when you live with that kind of faith, everything becomes lighter. You stop forcing. You stop defending your path. You stop demanding that the world be fair or kind. Instead, you begin to trust that even pain has purpose, even loss has meaning, even silence is speaking to you. But the awakened know, faith cannot be explained to those who have never felt it. It's like trying to describe the ocean to someone who has never seen water. No matter how beautifully you speak, your words will fall flat. Because faith is not an idea. It is an atmosphere, a living current that can only be experienced by diving in. So never reveal your deepest faith to those who would turn it into debate. You don't owe the world an explanation for your peace. Let your serenity speak for itself. When others ask, how can you trust after all you've been through? You don't need to answer. Your calm smile will be the answer. Your gentle eyes will explain everything. Because true faith doesn't preach. It radiates. It moves through you the way the tide moves through the shore, without announcement, without intention, simply because that is its nature. So hold your faith quietly. Feed it with silence. Let it grow strong beneath the surface. Because what is rooted in mystery cannot be uprooted by doubt. And when you finally realize that life itself is trustworthy, that existence has never abandoned you, you'll understand what Watts meant when he said, faith is the act of letting go and falling into the arms of what is. That is the kind of faith you never need to defend. You simply live it, and in your living you remind others of what they've forgotten, that the universe has always known the way. Chapter 5. The secret of your desire's desire is one of the most misunderstood forces in the human spirit. We are taught to suppress it, to feel ashamed of it, to see it as something that distracts us from our higher purpose. But Alan Watts once said, desire is the very essence of the universe. It is the energy of life itself trying to express through you. You see, desire is not the enemy of enlightenment. It is the invitation to it. Without desire, the seed would never push through the soil. The bird would never learn to fly. The child would never look up and dream of the stars. But there is a difference between desire born from the soul and desire born from the mind. The mind's desires are hungry, always chasing, never satisfied. They grasp, compare, accumulate. They are born from the illusion that something is missing. But the soul's desires are peaceful. They don't chase, they call. They don't come from lack. They come from love. Have you ever noticed how the deepest desires of your heart don't shout? They whisper. They appear as a quiet nudge, a feeling that something inside you wants to come alive. They don't demand attention. They invite you to listen. And yet, we live in a world that has turned desire into a marketplace. Every craving is exploited. Every longing is commodified. We are constantly told, you need more, do more, be more. And the tragedy is that this noise drowns out the subtle voice of the soul. Watts warned us, when you chase desire without awareness, you become addicted to the chase itself. You confuse motion with meaning. And in trying to fill the emptiness, you forget that the emptiness was never wrong. It was simply space for grace to enter. When you are spiritually awake, you begin to see through this illusion. You start to understand that the purpose of desire is not always to be fulfilled. Sometimes it is to awaken you, to lead you to the part of yourself that is still asleep, to remind you what you truly long for. Not the object of desire, but the feeling behind it. Have you ever longed for success only to realize you were actually craving peace? Or sought love, only to discover you were really searching for connection. Or chased freedom, only to find you were yearning to stop running. Every desire hides a truth. The soul doesn't want the thing. It wants the state of being that thing represents. It's not the house, it's the safety. It's not the fame, it's the recognition. It's not the wealth, it's the freedom. And when you see this clearly, desire transforms. It stops being a hunger and becomes a compass. But this realization must remain sacred within you. Because when you speak too soon of your deepest desires, you let the noise of others shape them. The world will try to tell you what to want. It will project its fears onto your dreams. And slowly, what was once pure becomes distorted. That's why the awakened keep their truest desires close, not out of secrecy, but protection. Because desire is like a flame. If you expose it too early to the wind of opinion, it flickers and dies. Alan Watts said, "You don't cling to the waves, you dance with them." That's the art of desire, to move with it, not to grasp it. To let it teach you, not control you. To let your longing expand you, until you realize that the one who is longing and the one being longed for were never separate. Have you ever felt that strange ache when beauty overwhelms you? When music, or the ocean, or a sunset makes you feel both joy and sadness at once? That ache is the essence of divine desire, the recognition of unity disguised as longing. You are yearning for what you already are. The lover and the beloved are one, so when you feel that pull, don't run from it. Don't call it weakness or distraction. Sit with it. Ask it, "What are you trying to show me?" And listen, not with your mind, but with your whole being. Some desires will dissolve once seen clearly. Others will burn brighter, not because they demand fulfillment, but because they remind you of your own infinite capacity to feel. And remember, not every desire must be shared, explained, or justified. The sacred ones often have no name. They live quietly inside you, guiding your choices like a secret compass. You don't need the world's approval to follow them. If your desire is pure, it will not destroy you. If it's false, it will fade the moment you stop feeding it. So trust what remains when the noise fades. That is your true calling. Watts taught that to live fully is to embrace both passion and peace. The awakened one doesn't suppress desire. They play with it, like a musician plays with sound, knowing that both sound and silence complete the song. So never reveal your deepest longing to those who cannot understand it. Protect it like a prayer, because your truest desire is not about getting what you want. It's about remembering who you are. You are life, longing for itself. And in that recognition, every desire becomes holy. Chapter 6. The Power of Your Solitude. Solitude. The word itself carries both peace and fear. For some, it sounds like freedom. For others, a quiet kind of death. But to Alan Watts, solitude was not the absence of company. It was the presence of your own soul. He once said, "You don't truly know who you are until you are alone." Because when the noise fades, the roles dissolve and the masks fall away, you meet the one person you've been avoiding all your life, yourself. In our modern world, silence has become almost unbearable. We live in constant distraction, scrolling, watching, listening, anything to avoid the echo of our own thoughts. We fear that in the stillness we might discover our emptiness, but Watts would say that emptiness is not something to fear. It's your gateway to truth. When you are spiritually awake, you begin to see solitude not as isolation, but as communion, a sacred meeting with existence itself. The trees speak differently when no one else is around. The wind sounds softer. Even your heartbeat begins to sound like the rhythm of the universe. Have you ever sat in silence so deep that it felt like time disappeared? No past, no future, just the steady hum of being. That's not loneliness. That's eternity whispering through you. Yet people fear solitude because it strips away identity. When no one is there to reflect you, who are you? Not the title, not the role, not the expectations, just pure awareness, naked and raw. And for many that's terrifying. But Watts taught that this nothingness is not the absence of life. It's life before we name it. It's consciousness untouched by definition. It's what every mystic has called home. When you stop resisting solitude, something miraculous happens. The voice inside you, once muffled by noise, becomes clear. You begin to feel what your body truly wants, hear what your intuition has been whispering all along. You see that you were never really lost. You were just too loud to listen. The greatest mistake people make is trying to fill solitude with distractions that numb instead of awaken. We scroll through lives that aren't ours, talk just to avoid silence, stay busy so we don't have to be. But true solitude is not about being alone in a room. It's about being full in your own presence. It's the art of sitting with your shadow without judgment. It's the moment you stop running from your pain and realize it was only trying to lead you home. Alan Watts once compared solitude to a mirror. He said, "When you look into still water, you see your reflection clearly, but when the water is disturbed, everything becomes distorted. That's what the mind is like. When we are restless, we cannot see the truth. But when we are still, truly still, a clarity dawns without effort. So many seek enlightenment through teachers, books, or retreats, yet forget that silence itself is the greatest teacher. In the quiet, you see patterns in your thoughts. You recognize the games your ego plays, and you begin to laugh, because suddenly you understand that all this drama was just consciousness pretending to forget itself. There's a beautiful paradox in solitude. When you finally make peace with being alone, you realize you were never separate at all. The trees, the stars, the sky, they were always a part of you. Solitude dissolves the illusion of separation. It shows you that you are the very life you were seeking connection with. That's why the awakened don't fear loneliness. They cherish solitude the way a monk cherishes morning prayer, as a sacred dialogue between self and existence. In that space, creativity flows naturally. Insight rises like dawn over a still lake. And love, real love, is born because you've finally fallen in love with your own being. Ask yourself this: when was the last time you sat in silence, not waiting for it to end, but allowing it to hold you? Not reaching for your phone, not escaping into thoughts, just breathing and being. If you can learn to do that, even for a few minutes a day, your entire perception begins to shift. You stop craving constant validation. You stop fearing the quiet, because you realize the quiet is not empty. It's full of you. Watts said, "You are an aperture through which the universe is looking at itself." And solitude is when that aperture opens fully. It's when the universe sees itself clearly, through your awareness. So if you are spiritually awake, protect your solitude. Don't explain it. Don't apologize for it. The world may call it loneliness, but in truth, it's divine intimacy. It's the space where you and existence meet as one. And the irony is, once you make peace with being alone, you become magnetic. People are drawn to those who are whole within themselves, because wholeness radiates calm. You no longer seek connection out of need. You share it out of abundance. So the next time you find yourself alone, don't reach for your phone or fill the silence with noise. Sit. Listen. Because that silence, that sacred stillness, is your soul introducing itself. As this journey of awakening unfolds, remember this: you don't find yourself in others. You remember yourself in solitude. And when you return to the world, you carry a presence that cannot be shaken, because it's rooted in something eternal. Alan Watts beautifully said, "To be still and know that you are God, this is the essence of meditation." In your solitude, that truth becomes real. You stop seeking divinity and start embodying it. So honor your solitude. Let it cleanse you, teach you, and fill you. Because when you truly learn to be alone, you will never feel lonely again, not even for a moment. Next video question: what if everything you're seeking is already here, hidden in plain sight? Would you dare to stop searching and simply be?